Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to take one of the Dual Universe Endgame Industry Breakdown and Analysis Manual Tutorial Guide, something like that. So this is a work in progress. This is just a preliminary recording to try to concentrate some of the views, some of the opinions, aspects, and nuances of industry. This video is intended for knowledgeable people who have mastered some of basic industry, who know how to produce basic elements, and who want to ask questions about what does a recycler do, what does a smelter do, and so on. We will start with the basic explanation of industry. I will attempt it straight away. Industry is basically composed of 4 tiers of, actually 5 tiers, 5 steps of production. You get the very basic tier 1s, ores, and also hydrogen and oxygen. These are converted by refiners. These are converted into pures, and then pures are converted by smelters into alloys, and then alloys are converted by the various industries into components, and then assemblies convert components to elements. So the basic rule, the basic idea behind advanced endgame industry is that normally you would have a line where you have all of these things involved, and you can produce whatever you are required to produce by setting the specific industries, setting the specific industries to produce the components required by the assembly. Naturally, there will be a supply. The supply of alloys will be the same for all industry. It should be limited. It should be limited by the fact that you only can get 10 links out from each container. Like, take a look at this container, for example. It contains silicon. You're not supposed to get more than 10 links out of it. But you can actually support much more links if you use a transfer unit. Transfer unit transfers silicon from the container into another container, and this other container also gets 10 links out. In this way, you can use a setup where you have a transfer unit that transfers silicon from that initial container to another container, which can then deliver the silicon across numerous hundreds and thousands of industries, basically. So the basic answer to establishing the endgame industry is to use transfer units, which will increase the amounts of links out that you have and that you can use to supply your industry with stuff. So transfer units increase the amounts of links out, and therefore your entire factory can share the same infrastructure, the same amount of smelters, the basic array of refiners and smelters to produce pures that are then converted into alloys now and delivered to your electronics. The second observation at play here, sorry, this is not the most interesting video coverage, so hopefully the next rendition of this video will improve that. The next observation here is that while you can go backwards and select a specific item, for example, we can go to assembly L, right? We see them the components that they need. So we get back to the specific industries, like 3D printers, like electronics, like metalworks. and we set them to produce the specific ingredients, right? What you can do is you can do that, yes. But the trick here with the end game industry is that you want to invest so much in the industry that you have a stock of all the required ingredients on hand. As you can see, this is the 3 floors of the DSI Madis factory. The first floor is doing the T1s, so T1s including materials and components made from hematite, bauxite, quartz, and coal. So iron, aluminium, silicon, and carbon. The second floor, that's the basic components, of course, that's the basic components. The second floor deals with uncommon elements that require T2 ores, and the third floor deals with advanced elements such as those that require T3 ores. And obviously the fourth floor, not present right now, will be added upon need to include, was it exotic or rare? I don't remember. So anyways, first of all, let's describe two basic rules for industry. The first rule, the first obvious rule, is label everything. You want to label absolutely everything. You want to put, right, well, you don't need to label this because it's pretty self-explanatory. You're not going to explain that, yeah, this is a specific line of smelters that are producing silicon steel and alpha alloy, because this is just obvious. But what I mean is that every industry that is producing something should be clearly labeled, so that when you want to find out what is it doing, like this industry here, what is it doing? We don't have to look in it. We don't have to waste time knowing what does it do. Instead, we use labels on everything. So how the DSI factory is established is that for each component that is going to be used in the industry process, in the manufacturing process, you get one room. So in every room there is industry units, low FPS, sorry. Alright, so in every unit, in every room, there is industry units connected to containers. This might be a better example. So there's industry units connected to basic to containers with specific. That's not the best example. All right, so basic industry units connected to containers that hold specific components. For example, this room, as is clearly said, so does burners. So I will continue explaining how the DSI assembly is run in a second. First, I would like to add that what is it that I was going to add? Cut. Oh yeah, the other good idea about industry is that you should always use containers that are appropriate for the specific task at hand. For example, this one is, I think, just a small container because it holds burners, so you don't have to put L containers everywhere. It's okay to use M containers and S containers. So you can use only those container types and sizes that are appropriate for the task at hand. And for storing such things as basic connectors, you don't need basically huge, large containers. So before I go on into explaining the DSI factory, I would like to state that another immensely important option for beginning industrialists is the Hyperion's website that has the crafting calculator. The editors, when they're going to edit this video, will show it to you. So when you select a specific element in that crafting calculator, you will get the breakdown of what elements is it made of and what industries do you need to create those elements. So if you need, for example, to find out what a what an extra large space engine is made of, you don't have to go into, all right, so large. You don't have to go here and browse through recipes and you don't have to. All right, so that's just not the biggest assembly. You don't have to look up the recipe in the assembly and then track. Let me show it to you. So yeah, let's pretend you're making an atmospheric engine. You don't have to track the ingredients. You don't have to source them. For example, basic screw. I have no idea where it's made. Is it the metalworks or the printers? I have no idea. However, the Hyperion website shows you very clearly, and you don't have to return to this recipe. You don't have to interact with this assembly to find out what next you should add. You don't have to write down the ingredients that are required for a specific product. Instead, it's just all there on the website with a good breakdown of what industry you need to create specific elements. So these are the 3 tips. First one is to label everything, and then use only the container sizes that are appropriate for your purposes. And the third one is use Hyperion's website. This will greatly increase your performance and enjoyment of industry. Anyways, now we will take a look at how the DSI industry is organized, how it performs, and what is the basic modus operandi of this gigantic industrial setup. So, what we decided to do here, as I mentioned earlier, is that instead of having to tune the industry units to produce specific components, we would have the components ready. All of the components that are required for potential assembly of any elements are already ready. They are made. They exist. For example, if we look at this specific room, then you will see that we have all types of standard frames, basic standard frames, already made. Of course, that's an overhead in the sense that you must invest into the stock in this specific container that's going to be illiquid. But the ease here is that once you go to your assembly lines, which are the endpoint of your industry interface, you can just link the specific containers to your assembly lines and then select the recipe and start crafting it. You don't have to manually interact with specific industry units. You can just link, relink, hotlink the specific containers to assembly lines. The general interface of the Madis factory is basically one where the simple officer that has the rights to it. All right, let's hope I don't get the bug. The simple interface of the Madis factory is one where you put in ore at one part of the industry. You put in ore at one part of the industry. So you deposit ore from one side of the factory, And after that, you can see very clearly that you can use the container hubs linked to large containers with some readings even here as to the volume available and present. Anyways, you can deposit ore from one side, and you can specifically use the assembly lines to select the elements that you need. Now, the important policy here is the relink process. The important aspect is that you will have several types of assembly lines. The first line of assembly lines is going to be maintaining critical elements, and will be run and administered by chief DSI personnel that is completing government contracts for huge volumes of stuff. Now, there will be a line of assemblies that are set to maintain. For example, this specific assembly here is maintaining. All right, so not this one. Yeah, this one is maintaining 30 screens at all times. So these assemblies will be out of limit to the public. Then there will be piloting assemblies that can be used by everyone because they do not require any relink functions. They produce specific piloting elements, and they do not require any interaction, any troubleshooting, any debugging, any relink, except the selection of the specific recipe. We can go here, we can select territory unit or whatever, territory scanner, whatever. Actually, it's just for piloting, sorry, not for territory unit, it's for piloting only. So we can go ahead and create a rocket fuel tank, apply, and we will be able to produce it immediately without any other interactions, because the piloting assembly will be arranged in a fashion where you will be able to have all the components that you need linked directly to the assemblies. So that's the second kind of assemblies, and these are assemblies that will allow for normal player interaction. I mean, casual players, basic members of the organization, can interact with these assemblies and fulfill requests because the assemblies are ready to produce whatever piloting elements they need. And of course, the third type of assemblies is the assemblies that are used with the relink procedure. So how are they used is that you have a specific assembly line that has no basic purpose, right? You have this medium assembly line here, and for example, this one, it creates resurrection nodes. You can at any time change what it's making, and for it to start making a specific required item, you would go ahead and link the containers with specific components. I'm overusing the word specific. You would link the containers with specific components to this assembly. This is the basic relink procedure. The idea of the relink procedure is that you have containers that hold all the possible elements. In order to produce something, you just go ahead, you find that container, and you link it to the assembly. As you can see, there are a lot of links on the factory. What we did here at DSI, and this is courtesy of such brand excellent, splendid threading officers as Creepers and Floppy, is that we have right now a specific room dedicated to each of the potential components. For example, there is 4 rooms dedicated to connectors, components, pipes, and screws. 1 room each. 1 room each. So what we want to do here is that if we need some industry to produce something that uses connectors, we go ahead, we select one of the containers and link them to the industry. So basically you have an array of rooms containing containers, well, and industry units that are filling these containers with elements. Every top industry in the game will be operated in this likewise manner. The hot relink procedure, where you connect containers to existing assembly units, is the basic endgame structure of manufacturing. Now, what is important, however, is making this process optimized. First of all, it's important to label everything. For example, if I'm looking for basic connectors, I don't have to open each container and find where the connectors are. Instead, I can look at the labels. Or what's better, I can look at a map, at a navigational menu that says what's in the rooms in this corridor. So this corridor has polycarbonate, lead optics, burners, and combustion chambers. There you go. Basic LEDs, basic optics, basic burners, and basic combustion chambers. And it clearly says so in the corridor itself. So later we will install a map of the entire industry, a floor plan, so you can do it with even more convenience. So we have 3 floors, and there's rooms on each of the floors, and these rooms are creating specific components. I would like to show you one of the basic elements, parts, components. No. One of the basic logistical tools here, which is the room that gives out the intake materials. So this is the intake room for the tier 2 floor. As you can see, it will deliver silicon, carbon, iron. It will deliver stainless steel. It will deliver, alright, why isn't this labeled? Glass to all of the floor's particular rooms. So we went ahead and we made the industry as easy to navigate as possible. And you can see that there's little screens that show you quite clearly what is available in which room and how to find the specific needed part. So the idea here is to make your industry as easy to navigate, easy to read, and user-friendly as possible. For this end, you apply labels everywhere, and you make a nice floor plan so that when you're looking for uncommon screw, you may find it by just looking at the signs, and you don't have to go into each container and try to find out where is it located. So the other user-friendly invention, is the procedure where each assembly is assigned a screen, and that screen states what's being produced there, how and in what quantity is being produced, who ordered this, and when they ordered that. This way you can track the status of the assembly lines, and it's easier to interact with them. I must note that we are not particularly technologically advanced, and this video does not require Lua scripting, a lot of Lua scripting. This video presupposes that you are just using the in-game functions and the interacting with technology as a non-programmer would. So another trick that the endgame industry for DSI uses is the array of containers that holds the products. Normally, you would have a stash of huge, large containers connected to a container hub and everything is there. That's not working. What we do here at DSI is that for all the elements used in shipbuildings, from dynamic cores to controllers to engines to tanks to brakes, adjusters, and so on, for each of these things, you get a special container labeled accurately. You also get another line of containers that's dedicated to less important, less crucial elements like dispensers, plants, territorial elements, sensors, and so on. And of course, there's the good old stash containers that can hold a lot of associated stuff like this here or whatever. So of course the assemblies are linked to the container to which they will be outputting the item that they are producing. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the general outline for the general flowchart for the assembly, for the end game assembly at DSI Madis factory works. First of all, we get the large containers with ores. This one holds a lot of quartz, 420 kiloliters of quartz. This quartz is then connected to refiners. The ores are connected to refiners. Is that a refiner or a recycler? Sorry. That's a refiner. That outputs them to the purest container. So there you go, 50 kL of silicon. After this, as you can see, through abusing the transfer unit link multiplication feature, we connect the same container to smelters. These are smelters. They produce tier 1 alloys, which are silicon, steel, and alpha alloy. So this particular container holds over 9,000 alpha alloy. After that, these alloys go to the intake materials room. This is the intake material rooms, where they are distributed to all of the industry units. So, for example, we can see that this container here holds steel, and it's linked across the floor, and this container as well is linked across the floor. So each industry unit, like this particular electronics, they're all connected to the intake units. Every room is connected to the intake unit's room. After that, the specific industry units in question produce basic components, whatever you want, whatever the components that you require. So after that, the last step is to connect these to assemblies and select the specific recipe you want made in the assembly, and there you go, you will have it produced. So on the second floor, you get the same thing. You get the intake rooms, which handle things such as sodium, duralumin, aluminum ferrum alloy, basic burner, all of the small components of T1 origin that are used here will be distributed using these containers. So each of the containers is connected to a transfer unit. This transfer unit brings in the associated component to this container, and this container then deploys or shares this steel across the entire floor. So if you want to look at this container, then using the transfer unit multiplication, as you can see, this transfer unit is currently transferring batches of steel to this container. And if we look at the links, then this container is supplying steel to each of the tier 2 of this floor's industry units. So that, for example, this industry is connected to the intake room, as you can clearly see here. It's connected to the intake room so that it has all the basic components that it needs because the intake room supplies it with basic components, basic electronics, and so on, and it produces the element in question, which is the uncommon core unit. So, as you can see, the base is easy to navigate, easy to troubleshoot, easy to debug, because even though there's a truckload of links, they are all organized. There's a lot of links here, but they're all organized in a logical fashion. So what you are willing to look at right now is the 3rd floor. They're all connected by elevators, of course. And again, you have the rooms for intake. They're going to get more and more complex, of course. This hasn't been labeled yet. We're going to label it soon. And here you have the same rooms as you have on the 1st floor. So you have those industry units producing advanced components, and advanced is the tier 3 step. And this base is set to deliver everything, including the advanced components, the stuff that's made out of advanced components. So after they're produced in assemblies, which have the nice procedure of maintaining basic administrative information on screens, they are delivered to the wall of stuff, where every officer that has the rights can come and take whatever is needed without having to locate it in a huge container hub or something like that. Guys, this is a small day 2 interjection where I would like to address some additional topics that are related to the endgame industry. Some techniques that I've learned over the past couple of days as I was talking about the video with my colleagues from the various guilds and corporations. The first one is the continuation. The first thing I wanted to mention is the continuation of the relink meta. The relink meta includes assemblies that are hot linked to containers containing components so that they can start producing whatever is needed. Now, the logical continuation of this method is to actually go ahead and preset assemblies that will keep the specific components that we need maintained. So this way you don't have to do any relink. You eliminate the relink by connecting assemblies to to predefined configurations that are linked to the components. For example, let's look at this hub here. We have one large container with 10 items with 10 TUs, and another one with 4 TUs and 4 items. So together, 2 of these large containers feed those 10 assemblies. Of course, 10, not more, not less. And these assemblies produce what is required from the components that are in those 2 large containers. So we have figured out that it's 14 containers, 14 units, 14 components is enough to produce most of our piloting needs. So what we're doing here is, instead of relinking, we establish permanent hubs that can allow us to set industry to maintain. So instead of operating industry, we have it linked to our wall of stuff, and items are getting done and maintained without any involvement. So one of the metas here is that you want to create a lot of maintain hubs like this one, a lot of maintain hubs, and keep everything you want, everything you need automated to a point where you don't have to intervene and do manual relinks. However, the maintain meta is a hard thing to achieve because it's very expensive. You will need a truckload of assemblies, and you will need a truckload of transfer units. One transfer unit for each element, and there's 70 elements in the game or something like that, and they're used in varying quantities, overlapping different component crafting process, and so on. So what you have to do here, how to solve the industry problem, is you have to do a balance between relink and maintain. So we have this line that maintains critical components that are related to, for example, piloting. At the same time, you could have maintain lines for example, producing industry, or you could lines that produce weapons. However, the minor stuff that you need, the little orders that can come in every once a week or twice a week, these should be kept to a relink process. You don't want, for example, a maintain chain to deliver something exotic like military engines, for example. You don't need a maintain chain to deliver all of the items that you can produce. You can do that with relink. So that covers the maintain meta, and our argument is that there should be a balance between establishing maintain hubs, such as this one, where you get 10 industries, 10 assemblies producing the stuff that you need from day to day, and keeping a relink configuration where you have individual industries that are custom. They can be operated with the links, and they will perform whatever you want them to perform. However, another good trick here, another really nice trick, is using the hub to link more assemblies than just one per the relink process. What I'm trying to say here is that usually you have an assembly, a custom assembly. If you want to mass produce things, you will have to link all the components to it, and then if you want to mass produce it, you will need to link all the components to each of the assemblies that you want to involve in mass production. For example, these two assemblies produce military space engines, and if you can see, they're both linked to they're both individually linked to all the containers that hold the necessary components. However, there is a trick. What you might want to do is you set up a large container that can hold up to 10 assemblies, and you link it to the containers with transfer units. You set up them just once, and usually there's just like 4 or 5 or 6 components, maybe 7 components per item. And what you do is you deploy as many assemblies as you want. 2, 3, you can deploy up to 10 assemblies in any order, and you link them to that container which has all the required components, and you start mass producing. So instead of linking them one by one, you just link this container once, and then you link the container to the assemblies, and in this way you can not only mass produce in the sense of you will have 10 lines of assemblies, 5 here, but a total max of 10. You will have 10 lines producing the item that you need, so you can quickly produce it and forget about it. You just make enough of it and you can forget about it. Not only will it be faster, but you will also not have to link each assembly each time. So this is another idea here that can save you overhead and save you from additional micromanagement. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that technically this one container here, this empty container that is supposed to be linked to transfer units, what you can do, you can instead of using the links, instead of using container to hub to industry links, what you can do is you can manually put the items, for example, we have 10 components here, right? What we could do is we could put all the 70 components in one container. All the factory products could go into one container, and it would then be available to produce anything you want without any linking required. And this, my dear friends, is how one of the most advanced, most sophisticated industries in dual universe operates. Let me show you the difference between the linkers, the industry that are linked, and there you go, New Genesis Factory 2. Industries that are linked, or they use the sixth tool, links between containers, industries, assemblies, and transfer units. And the other process that is employed by some advanced industrialists that have been playing the industry game for a long time and are much more successful at it, with voluminous, fantastic, vast industry setups. So they use a different technique, and I will not tell you all about this technique, how it works, but I will show you the basics. All right, and we're at the New Genesis factory site, which is a public surrogate VR pod. So let's go ahead and, well, find the specific place I wanted to show you. There it is, immediately here. So we talked about having a container where all the components are stored. This single container could be used to produce absolutely anything. Connect enough assemblies to it, and you will have the ability to produce anything. So what New Genesis does is they have container hubs that are stored here in a matrix fashion, with each container hub storing some item. So instead of reeling, they have a different procedure. Instead of reeling, they have assembly lines, 10 assembly each, connected to large containers, and what you do is you declare one of these large containers as linked, and you just pick the particular components from the matrix and deliver them into your link container by the simple inventory process. So you select the amount of components that you want to go to your assemblies, and you don't have to relink anything. So this is the more advanced technique that New Genesis has invented. And while DSI will keep operating the way DSI has operated, this is another possible solution, another interesting, fascinating idea that will keep your chief industrialist, something's exploding. Keep your chief industrialist awake at night, because technically, between the balance of relink and maintain, there are still unsolved problems in the industrial doctrine. So this has been an interjection. Let's get back to the video number 1.
Oh yeah, guys, and another spontaneous interjection I would like to make is that when you are making the basic maintain meta, you don't have to spend a transfer unit for each of the parts, because some of them will be used in your 10 assemblies just once, so that you can link the component to your assemblies and bypass the concentration of all the components in your maintain hub with the large containers, so you can save on a couple of transfer units.
This is the overview of how the DSI mega factory at Madis is working. We hope that this video has helped you to figure out how to deliver a working endgame industry. If there's anything you would like to add, any procedures, practices, best practices, any protocols, or other organizational or administrative forms that will help us improve this factory, or if you would like to share any thoughts, ideas, feedback, or maybe you think that you know better and we all are incompetent, please feel to say so in the comment section. Thank you for watching. This has been DSI UN86RN signing off.